I think I'm live. There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever live stream on HiveQ.com. This is where the Q&A is going to live going forward, because I've realized doing the live streams for this long, the same questions come up again and again and again. And I was struggling to answer all of them kind of within that allotted hour. But it made me think, well, maybe if people went over to HiveQ.com, they could see that these questions can be answered probably in a more thorough way, definitely in a more visually entertaining way. So that's what I want to show you first. I just want to jump over to the feed here, because all of the questions that are asked are answered here. Here's a perfect example: thorn sale frame. Someone's asking, help, I'm looking at thorn sale items. I'm interested in the frames, DN4, SM4 and SM1. Are seconds a good buy, or should frames be first quality? There's so many little questions there, isn't there? Like, first up, what's a DN4? What's an SN4? What's an SM1? What spacing do you want? And then, is it first quality? Is it second quality? Like, this is why we created 14-Day Beekeeper, to try and answer some of these questions. But even with all of that information there, it's still a case of, I'm a bit bamboozled. Like, what should I do? And you look at that, that's top of the HiveQ discussion board at the moment. And there's 32 comments in there, which is quite a lot. And people saying the seconds are fine. Make sure you go for these ones. If you're putting them in castellations, you want SM1s. And if you're having brood boxes, you want DN4 because they're self-spacing. So the advice for me is just head over to HiveQ. And I know that I'm doing the stream on HiveQ, but this will be recorded and it'll go out to YouTube later on as well. But what I wanted to do is just kind of go in and pop my head into some of these pages here and say hello. There are a few really nice little bits going on over there as well. I just want to double check to make sure that we are good in the chat. We are good in the chat and people are there. Excellent. Right, I'll continue. I've put a Q&A up, so hopefully people can work it out. I'm sure you'll be able to work it out better than me, but there is a Q&A there. So if you have any questions, just chuck it in the live Q&A and I will dip in and answer any questions that come from the community. There we go, get my words out. But I will carry on just taking a look on this feed here, because there's a few really good bits of learning that we can share kind of outside the HiveQ community. So I posted this yesterday. Where are the wasps? Crazy. I've been like ramping up the defenses, saying the wasps are coming soon, the wasps are going to come. And then I look out and they're not that bad this year. They're really not that bad. So obviously something has impacted the development. Maybe that really miserable 3-week June gap where it rained for 3 weeks. Didn't it feel like that wasn't this year? How did we get 3 weeks of rain and very, very cold temperatures? Maybe that knocked them back, but the wasps not feeling the pressure as much this year. Chrissy has announced it's Friday. Thank you, Chrissy. Got a few people trying to get some features going on for Black Mountain Honey, but then there was one down here that I really like, this one here. As soon as I saw that, I thought, oh, wow, varroa board. What is that? Like, gets my heart going every single time, because that doesn't look like something that should be on a varroa board. And then the person who's written this one here was like understandably worried about what was going on. There's something on the varroa board, but I don't know what it is. So I looked at that, I was like, oh, it looks like mouse droppings from there. I'm kind of looking back thinking, it look good. And then I went down into here and I saw, and I was like, oh, okay, I know what it is. It's pollen. And it looks quite worrying. Like, if you're a beginner beekeeper and you're being told you need to watch for varroa, you need to watch for foreign exotic pests and make sure there's nothing there that doesn't look right. And then you see something like that and you think, I've never seen that before. That looks like slightly concerning. But then having the fallback of HiveQ, being able to just post a photo in there, get 13 comments, someone saying, I'd guess pollen, few people guessing different things, but then come into the consensus, yeah, probably pollen. Frenzied feeding is what I've put there, or frenzied foraging on the pollen. And then they're just trying to like kind of mush it in as quickly as they can, and obviously being quite messy with it. Could be another explanation as well, but it's definitely pollen. But it just got me back to thinking how I was as a beginner beekeeper, and I think how most people are as beginner beekeepers. We're a bit concerned. We're a bit worried. We think we want to do the absolute best for our bees. So pardon me. So I like that example there. It's a great example of how HiveQ can kind of help de-stress beginner beekeepers. This one here as well. This was a good one. Honey trouble. It's only the second time I've had to go at spinning honey. Have I messed it up? It didn't look like this last time. Any advice, ideas? So it's sad that this has happened, and there are a couple of mistakes in there. So we're going to have a look in the comments on this one. But you can see how the learning gets shared here. The problem is that too much honey has gone in there, and there's a bit too much wax in there as well. And the bottom of the extractor, when it's been spun round, and looking at the notes, it was probably spun for a little bit too long as well. It's whipped the honey up and incorporated the wax, and it'll do it even without the wax, but just makes it harder to clean up if the wax gets in there. And it's not really recoverable. You'll see it turns into this thick foamy layer, and normally there's no bits of wax in there, so you don't have to filter it and you can just eat it as foam. But if you've got bits of wax in there as well, very, very difficult to do anything with it. Probably going to have wrecked all of that honey, I would say. But look how many people are seeing this. Look how many people are seeing this now and saying, well, oh, okay, what? You have to make sure that the honey doesn't come up to the bottom of the extractor. Like, everyone makes the mistake. I've made the mistake. Everyone does it. But if you've paid the £8.99 a month for HiveQ, then you avoid that mistake. So a lot of people will save a lot of honey off the back of that advice there. Right, I'm going to jump in and see if we have any Q&As. We do have some Q&As. Okay, cool. Right, I can stop waffling on now. Oh, hopefully people are happy with me looking this way. I know the camera is over there, but this is my new zone for the HiveQ videos. Right, James actually says, keeping bees is worse than having children. Try having both, I would say. There we go. Mark says, we've had a lot of wasps so far. We usually have a green woodpecker visit our garden in September, October, but she is already hopping around on the lawn. I'm going to have to get some protection out for the garden nukes this weekend. Good shout and good heads up. And always, this is why I like the community so much. I really do, yeah, because it reminds me of certain things. I'll be getting ready to, like, wasps are a good example. I'll be getting ready to remind people about wasps, and people down on the south coast are saying, whoa, wasps are happening ages ago. So I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, it needs to be like slightly wider. So maybe the woodpecker warning needs to go out a little bit earlier. And for anybody who doesn't know, if you've got like green woodpeckers or any, I'm not sure if it's both type of woodpeckers, but if you see any sort of woodpeckers knocking around your garden or your hives, you need to put protection up. Woodpeckers are terrible for just burrowing in. They'll get through poor quality wooden hives with a bit of work. You don't really see them. They give up quite quickly, but they fly through polyhives. You can go back into like little poly nukes or even full-size polyhives, and the woodpeckers have just smashed straight into the massive holes, lots of damage. And sometimes it can result in the colony being robbed out as well. So you want to do everything you possibly can to avoid woodpeckers kind of taking out your hives. Now, when I say everything possible, I'm talking completely humane. You get like mesh, so the woodpeckers can't access the hives. That's generally what you do. Don't harm the woodpeckers, of course. We love our woodpeckers, but they do need some sort of management. You need some sort of management as a beekeeper if you've got woodpeckers in your area. It's quite funny. Other people have commented on this before to me. They said, yeah, it's quite cute when you talk about some of the pests you have in the UK. It's like, oh, you have to be careful if a mouse gets in, or big problem if any badgers come by. And then like people in Canada are looking like with bears over their shoulder, just coming in and smashing everything up. And they say, oh yeah, mind out for all those mice though. Oh yeah. Anyway, green woodpeckers, they can do a lot of damage. Phil says, good morning. I'm planning to remove the supers and add a second brood box. Feed and treat today. Should I add the second brood box, even though it's foundation that needs to be drawn out? Thanks. Great question, that one, Phil. And one where it's just very relevant because I filmed something about that this week. So we're changing up the style of the video, and I tried to compress everything that I've done in kind of the last 4 weeks into a video. And one of the things was this. So I'd taken a nuke, and I'd done a little bit of checkerboarding, and I'd taken it from like a 6-frame nuke to about like a 10 or an 11-frame nuke. And this was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I was thinking, okay, I need to double brood this colony. Like I'm not going to be able to just keep this full-size brood box going from like the 1st of July all the way through until winter. So I'll double brood. There we go. I'll double brood. I'm not going to feed them because there's a lovely good flow on at the time. Back then there was anyway. So I'll just leave them to it. And I came back probably about 2.5 weeks later, and we just did like a little bit of a video on it. And the video was going to be why I double brood going into winter, why it's like an easy way out for the beekeeper, and it's an easy way out for the bees. So it's win-win for everyone. Really do like double brood going into winter. So that was like the aim of the segment. And I went over there and started pulling the frames out, and they didn't need it. Like, they didn't need the double brood. I looked at it, a single brood box, like the brood box full of bees and brood, and then another brood box on top full of foundation, just like your question there. Been on for 3 weeks, half decent flow that was on, colony that was expanding, not even touched it, not a sniff. So I look at that, and I look around, and I look at the weather, and I look at the dryness, and I look at the bees, and I look at the wasps, and I try and look at everything, and I say, was that the right decision? And I looked back, and it's an easy one. No, it was the right decision at the time, but looking at it now in hindsight, the bees would have been okay just to work that brood box. So what did I do? I took it off. I removed it, and that's the confidence that I will try to instill in people, which is like make the decisions, but constantly review them. And if it's the wrong decision, then do what you feel is right. And equally, like if I'm giving you advice and saying, look, you need to go and double brood your bees, and if you're looking at them thinking, not sure, I don't think they need double brood, then don't double brood them. Like it's the best person to advise on what your bees need is the person standing in front of the beehive, kind of feeling the energy from the bees and looking around and understanding the local conditions and the local flows and the local flowers and the local weather and the rain, probably most importantly this year, and making that call. So I would say, let's look at your one there. You're planning to remove the supers and add and second brood box, feed and treat today. So it's a slightly different situation there. My one was just a brood box full of bees. That was it. There was no supers on it. I've got ones at the moment. Same on this video here. I got one where it's a treble demaray, and it's great because it's not been treated any of the boxes, so it is just a honey mountain, and it's on sort of brood box. I think it's 3 supers and then 2 brood boxes like that, full of bees, full of honey. I wish all my colonies were like this, but they're not. But when I go to take all of the honey off that one, which I'm going to do this week, I'll take all of the honey off. And then if I said, right, you can all go into the single brood box at the bottom, like they'd look up and say, come on, it'd be ridiculous. So I'll need to put the additional brood box on then. And I wouldn't worry at all about it being foundation at that point, because you're going to put the feeder on. And as long as you kind of drizzle a bit of feed through and it goes down to the bees, then they will start taking all of that down and they will start drawing it out. There's lots and lots of the season left to do stuff like that. To get a brood box drawn out, you only need like a few days of good weather, and we'll probably get a few days of good weather. Interestingly enough, I went out this morning and sat outside with my cup of tea and sat down on my chair. I thought there'd be a little bit of rain last night. I sat down on my chair, and I do it every morning. There's a pillow there and it collects the water, and then I'm just got like soggy tracksuit bottoms, but it felt like a real downpour again. So we need a lot of this to get any sort of flow coming back in, and the flow is dead. Like I've done this on the channel member video this week. No, I'm ahead I'm ahead of the channel member video. It is filmed, due to be released on Monday, but it basically says it's done. Like any false confidence of a little bit of rain coming back in for me is gone. It is completely finished. Right, let's go on to a next question. Right, a few questions coming in. I just want to make sure that I'm getting all of them here. Right, Mark says, I'm now paranoid about harming my queen during inspections. Would you recommend using a queen clip and putting her out of the way and adding her back after all the frames are back in? So I can understand the paranoia, especially when you see like Zane's first nuke. Not blaming Zane for that one. Could easily be me as well. But looking after a queen and the management of a queen during an inspection is an important lesson. It's an important skill to have. My approach to it is always to reduce the risk. So you don't want your queen to be killed. I would say trying to find the queen and kind of put her in a clip and then get her back out of the clip again is potentially adding more risk of the queen being damaged. So the way that I like to do it, I like to do it quite simply. I'll go into a beehive, I'll work out which frame I'm going to take out first, and it does always kind of vary depending on the style of the box, but generally going to be one of the frames towards the edge. I'll make some space for that frame to come out, and then I'll really slowly take that frame out, one frame out, and I'll look at the bees, and I give it that frame. I give a very, very good look. I'm looking for the queen, confirming that I'm happy that the queen is not on that frame, and then I'll just go and put that off to one side, and then I'll inspect the whole colony with that one frame out, and it gives you that little bit of breathing room. I would say if you're still worried about pulling them out when it's that tight, have like a dummy board in there, a big dummy board that you can get out each time. Good example of that is the Payne's Langstruth nuke. It's got a removable feeder. It's a 6-frame nuke with a removable feeder. But when you take the removable feeder out, it gives you like a 2-frame space. And I love doing inspections in there because you've just got tons of space to like lift up a frame and move it over like that. And then all I say is that when you find the queen, you find the queen, you say, okay, I've got the queen here. And then you can put the queen down into your reserved space. And another tip is whenever you're putting queens back in on the frame, make sure she's always on the face of the frame. So she's not kind of like around the edges, but like bang in the middle of the face of the frame there. Safest place to go back down into the colony. And I think that would probably be the best advice there, as opposed to adding in a clip or adding in anything new. Try and do something like that, and that should fix it. But yeah, I get paranoid about that as well, especially with the expensive ones. Nothing worse than killing an expensive queen. Neil Phillips says, morning, Lawrence. I had a break visiting family in Finland last week and got through loads of 14-day beekeeper. I absolutely loved it. I'm in my 3rd year, did a course, but never had or wanted a mentor. So your content is perfect for me. Oh, well, thank you very much, Neil. That's really nice to hear. We've had so many nice comments from people about 14-day beekeeper. And I'm glad that it's helping everyone. I'm glad that you're getting the value out of it. Like I'm very excited about 14-day beekeeper and what is kind of in the future for it. But I have to say, like the HiveQ element of 14-day beekeeper, and if you buy 14-day beekeeper, you get if you get 14-day beekeeper is £149, you get 300 videos, so it's like 50p a video. But you also get 12 months free access into HiveQ now. I know there used to be different membership models, but that's still quite a valuable, a valuable proposition because it's effectively like £100 freebie on a course that costs £149. But I think this is where the value is, and this is where the value for people that I'm selling 14-day beekeeper to is. It's the being able to have that like collective mindset. Go back to the beginning when we looked at the picture of the mouse droppings underneath the floor. I know it was never mouse droppings, but to a beginner beekeeper, to someone who's never kept bees before, that picture there like sends shockwaves through their kind of mind. They're like, oh my goodness, what is going on? My bees are going to be consumed by mice. Like they're worried, they're scared. And then being able to just post the image and say, what do you think? And not just to a mentor, not just to a single person, but to a group, a collective of people who are kind of understanding the same things, but all having their own different unique experiences and sharing them. It gets me really excited of the prospect of it. And you know my thoughts about the community, you know my thoughts on what I'm trying to do within HiveQ. It's not just going to be like a Facebook group. It's not just going to be comments on there. We are trying to bring some technology inside. Like for anyone who's not seen any of this before, we're trying to develop a hive scale system as a network, first up in the UK, but maybe wider than that as well, that will give us some data and some and the ability to refine our guidance based upon what is actually going on. So when are the flowers yielding? When are the bees swarming? When are the bees really struggling? And when do I actually have to kind of go in and take my honey off? We're doing things like that. We're also doing cool things like honey exchanges as well. You know, everyone knows I'm excited about my honey exchange. And then next week, I've got my big wildflower bank up at the forest. And once all the wildflowers are finished and they've dried up, my aim is to kind of go in there and like harvest some of the seeds, and I'll be just giving them out to HiveQ members. So if you're interested about that, then we are all good. Oh, and this is Neil Phillips, who was happy for me promoting his electrical courses company on YouTube Lives. It doesn't have the same ring to it now. You've not got your tag in there, but this will go out on YouTube at some point as well. Oh, right. Dinesh says, morning, Lawrence. You may want to share your screen and point out where the Q&D button is rather than in the chat area. Oh, that's a good shout. I'm not 100% sure how to do that. We're going to have to get someone else to get that sorted out for me. I think I'm missing people's comments here. So let me jump down to the bottom right. Josh says, morning, Lawrence. Thanks for the queens yesterday. I see they have white discs as opposed to marker pen. Will all the queens be marked like this from now on? The cage is also different to normal. Any reason for this? So we've sold way more queens than we sold already last year. The markers were already due to come in, but they ran out of cages. That's the problem. So they ran out of cages. You couldn't make it up, could you? But the discs, we're looking at doing the discs. We're having issues with the marker pens, and we're not happy with the way that the marking is coming off. And we think it's getting warmer in Europe. It's getting warmer kind of everywhere. So we're kind of experimenting with it. I like the look of them. I think they're much better. I think there's more longevity to a single disc like that. It does introduce logistical challenges elsewhere, and it does potentially impact the price. So we're doing it. We're kind of trialing the two of them at the moment. Next year we'll make a decision on which one is best. If you have any feedback, don't give me any feedback about those cages, because I said to them, please never send those cages again. Hence the sellotape around the edges of them. That was fun. Chrissy will tell you all about that. But the dots, I like the dots. So we will see with the dots. If you would pay a premium for a dot, I'm not talking like a huge premium, but then like if we could raise the price just a tiny bit to accommodate it, then it might be okay. If not, we might have to fall back to the marked ones, or there might be like it's not 6-7, a potential like split. So it might be both. I'm not 100% sure yet, but that is a work in progress. Right, sorry. So that was the first one. So it is from the top. I didn't even know where I'm working from there. Right. So we are on Dinesh and then we are on Simon G. Simon G says, any idea where I can get a queen this coming week? I combined a nuke to its original hive and seems the queen has swarmed. I was probably a week late combining. No, I'm not gonna say any of my competitors on here, but I think you'll struggle to find them. And I think people you'll notice, yeah, there's not been many emails from me this year saying, oh, the queens are selling out fast. You better buy them. They always sold out previously, but like I've had to stop doing those emails because they prompt way too big a reaction and they just go whoom and sell them. So we had some mated extras last week, and normally like I'd put the heads up out to people on HiveQ and say there's a few extra queens on there, or and if they didn't sell and there was still a few left, I'd do like a Facebook post or something, and then if the Facebook post didn't sell them, then I'd maybe do an email, and that's kind of like the order in which it goes. And I put a fair amount of queens on there yesterday, or Thursday night actually, just on the website. And I think people have clocked that if they sign up for stock notifications, they get in there quick, because I put them on and come back half an hour later to do a post and they're gone. So the demand is huge. We've only got 2 weeks left, so we've not got any queens coming in next week. And then the following week, they said to me like the numbers are going to be limited, so that they will probably sell out way before that week. And then there's only 1 week left of the season, final week 35. So I'm not sure where you can get a queen this week, but heads up for anyone watching this. Like, it sounds like advertising, heads up, doesn't it? It sounds like I'm saying it, oh yeah, get the queens because they're going to run out. It's like, no, genuinely, they are going to run out. And then when you see that they're out of stock for weeks, you'll be like, oh no, he was being genuine. There we go. Rory says, morning Lawrence, my bees are on brood and a half. I have removed the supers, I have ordered my quick strips, and I'm going to start feeding and treat them as soon as possible. How many strips shall I put in? Right, brood and a half and Apivar strips are a match made in hell. So I urge you to reconsider, and I'm really glad that you asked the question before going ahead and doing it. The only caveat that I would add is that if you say you've previously done it last year and you've already tainted your super with Apivar, then it doesn't matter. You can just go ahead and do it anyway. But here's the scenario for you. I say, right, go ahead, put this many strips in. You put them in on brood and a half, and then in the bees get through the winter, and then they come out of the spring, and you think, right, what am I going to do next spring? Right, I'll get the queen and I'll put her at the bottom, and I'll put a queen excluder in the middle, and then all of the brood emerges from the super, and then I can reuse it as a super. But you can't because it's tainted with Apivar. So then it becomes this permanent brood and a half box that you can never do anything with. Like, it's not a super anymore. It's just two different size brood boxes, which is really difficult to work. Like, the manipulations are difficult. You can't swap one frame from one box to another. And although the size is probably a nice size, it doesn't give you the ability to do like a proper demo because you can't swap the frames around. I really do not like brood and a half. So my recommendation to you is, and my advice to you is, the bees don't need that super of honey. They just don't need it. If there's a super of honey there, my recommendation would be take the super of honey off, put the Apivar strips in, feed the bees up, build them up, let them just expand and take the space in a single national deep. That's all. Like, that's the only size that we overwinter on. Through Richard's operation, that's the only size that they winter on. I put a few through on double brood as well. But believe me, most colonies will get through on a single brood box in the UK. Even big, massive, buckfast colonies, it's a nice size for them. You don't need the additional super. You just don't need it because they've got plenty of stores down in the brood box. And if they haven't, you just top them up down there. And also, there's no additional benefit to the bees on feeding on honey throughout that season versus feeding on sugar syrup. In fact, it can be the opposite depending on what they've been going and foraging on. Like, they can forage and store certain things that in the winter isn't the best for the bees, where inverted sugar syrup that doesn't go off and doesn't ferment and is very, very stable and very pure and very simple for them to digest can be actually superior as well. There's a lot of I don't want to say misadvice, because I understand that some people might not want to feed and they might just say, no, I want it to be like natural and not tainted. And I guess there's reasons for that as well. But if you're thinking of it purely from a perspective of, I just want the bees to get through winter, I want the bees to have enough food, it doesn't have to be honey. And using the honey as winter feed like that makes your life difficult when it comes to the management of the colony next year, which is ultimately not good for the bees either. Ellie Sean says, how do you store frames from supers that are not capped enough to spin? Or brood frames removed when consolidating a hive from double brood to single brood? So first up, I just like to say this is working really good. My concern, yeah, I was a bit nervous that of coming over to Circle and doing this was that there weren't going to be enough questions, and I am very much struggling to keep ahead with the questions here. So this is fine. It gives me the ability to answer the questions a little bit slower as well, which I think is nice. So how do I store the frames from supers that are not capped enough to spin? First up, I would make a real distinction on the ones that are not capped enough to spin. Because the advice that we give in 14-day beekeepers, we say, roughly, look, when a frame is 80% capped over, it's good to go. Anything above that is good to go. So 80, 90, 100% is fine. But for every 100% frame you put in, you could probably get away with putting in like a 60% frame as well. And then even going down to like 50%, which covers quite a broad spectrum of frames there. There's not going to be many frames that aren't 50% capped over. And once they get to the point of being 50% capped over, the moisture content is going to be very low anyway. It's probably going to be either close or at the optimum moisture content. So it's not going to be an issue adding it in. The ones that you're probably talking about are ones where you're picking it out and like it's not capped and you shake it and stuff comes out. Definitely, they don't want to go anywhere near a honey extractor because they will ramp up the moisture content very quickly. And you've correctly identified that you're not going to put them in there. But the ones that are, you're pulling them out, you're thinking, okay, well, that's 80% full. Let me give it a little shake like that. Okay, nothing's coming out. That's actually quite close. I collect all of those up. And once you've got a few colonies, you can do that. You just collect all of those up and put it into a single super and go and put it on a nice strong colony and they finish it off for you. Anything else, you can just, say you've got frames in there and there's not really much you can do with it. If you're lifting it out and it's shaking out, it's not storable in its current format. If you stored it like that, it would just ferment. So I got a very itchy face. I need to sort my beard out. But if you take it out, just shake all of the nectar out, and then go ahead and store it. That's probably what I would do. It will ferment a tiny little bit, but it's not that bad, and the bees will sort it out in the spring. So any frame where you can just shake it out like that, shake it out, and go ahead and store it. Any of the ones that are like intermediate, you have to make a decision on. The backup that you can always have is freezing them. So if you've got one, like, I don't want to waste all the honey that's in there, but it's not quite shaking out, but it's really high moisture content. You could go and put it in the freezer and then just thaw it out and use it again the following year. That will stop the fermentation. It goes very brittle when it's frozen though, or when it's like, it goes brittle when it's frozen, when it's cold. But there's not going to be that many. If you can time it well and you can mix them together and blend it a little bit, then it's you don't end up with too many frames at the end that are like that. And then storing them wet is going to be the best way of doing it. And the way that I do that is I get like I store them wet outside is my method. So I have it under a roof, like under an awning, somewhere where you're not going to get rain, like farm building or anything like that. And then I set up my metal roofs, so just like a standard wooden national roof with a metal lid on the top. I put one of them on the floor, and then I just stack the supers inside it. I put a crown board at the bottom as well, just for a little bit of extra protection. But upturned roof, then crown board, then all of the supers, and then the same on the top, crown board, and then another roof on top. And then I ratchet strap it up. It's essentially like it's mouse proof. It's solid wood and solid metal. Nothing can get in. No bees can get in, no wasps can get in. And then I leave that outside so it's exposed to the cold. And I don't clear up any of the frames. So all of my extracted supers go in there. I extract my supers and I put them back in there and then I seal them up and then that's it, they're done. So I come back in the spring and all the supers are nice and sticky and tacky and kind of got remnants of honey on there still. And any frames like that, the ones that I said where you're pulling the frames out, they're drawn out, you shake anything that's in it and it's just a tiny little bit of nectar, just stack all of those up in a box and they can go in with the wet supers as well. Like I said, you might get a tiny little bit of fermentation. You might get a little bit of a smell of fermentation, but the bees are used to clearing all that up and it shouldn't pose any issues the following year. I'm missing all the chat. If there's any chat comments over there, I'll have to jump over to the chat. If I go to the chat, okay, the chat is happening here as well. Sorry, all over the place here. Oh, there's lots of people saying good morning in the chat as well. So hello to everyone in the chat. Right, let me jump back into the Q&A. Mark says, always wondered about the disc. Are they effectively just stickers? They're not actually stickers. They're just like blanks You can get metal ones as well. I've seen some people use metal ones. I was thinking you could get like a metal detector and work out where your queen is, but I, I don't think there's a requirement for that level of technology. But it's just it's just a curved bit of plastic. You can get it with different colors and different numbers and stuff, and then you super glue it onto the back of the queen. They're very good. They use like all the breeder queens that we get are all like that, and it does seem to be that more breeders are willing to do the work to get them on. And I think it's helpful in terms of longevity and identification of queens. Definitely is. Right, next question. Steve says, morning, purchase some hives from a local beekeeper. The brood frames are very old and need to replace. Double brood, I guess, strong hives with some flow, double brood, and then feed with 1-to-1. Yeah, that's what I would be doing. I'd be pumping them full of feed at the moment. The only thing that I'm going to say it's slightly the wrong time of year to do it though, Steve. And I can imagine, like I'm thinking in my head, right, purchase some hives from a local beekeeper. The frames are very old and you need to replace them. I can see the colony of bees here. I can understand their battle, and I'm betting that they're riddled with varroa. I really do think they will be. If the frames are old and the frames are not being managed well, the beekeeper's management practices are probably not that great. Likelihood is he's not treated them, which means that they could be like riddled. And if they are, even if there's just like a moderate level of like PMS, parasitic mite syndrome in there, then to put another brood box on and to feed them and say, right, expand and do this, they're just going to say no. It'd be like the colony that I tried to do it on 3 weeks ago, where you put it on, say go, and they say no, too late. And you do that with an ill colony like August, when it's a compressed season. I'm not sure they're going to do it. So it might be a case of saying, no, this is what I would do here, Steve. I would say, you're spot on with your judgment. You need to replace the frames. I think you've got the colony too late to replace the frames this year. It's more of a spring job. Be much easier in the spring, much easier for the bees to bounce back from it. So I would just treat the bees. Go in now, do the mite treatment now. Don't let anything delay that. That's going to lower the level right down. And then when you get into a nice broodless period, we'll identify good broodless periods for people here in HiveQ. Don't worry, we'll focus in on that. But then go in and do some sort of oxalic acid sublimation or some sort of oxalic acid drizzle at that point. And then you're getting this two-pronged knockdown of mites. That should get the colony through until the next year, which has got to be your ultimate aim, get them through to be able to build back up again. And then I think in the spring, your plan is valid. The only tweak that I'd make to it in the spring is I'd underbrood at that point, because it means that you can go ahead and put the box on very, very early and you can start feeding. People get that one wrong here. What they do is they say, right, we'll do that in the spring. So brood box is here, and then so brood box is here full of bees, and then I'm going to put this new brood box full of foundation on, and I'm going to put the feeder up here. And then the bees kind of look up and they're like, can't get up there, it's cold, it's like winter, we're not going up there, thank you very much. They just don't go and see the feeder and it doesn't get touched. Whereas if you do it the other way, and we've shown this on loads of videos now, if you do the brood box full of bees there, and then in the winter in Feb, you go and put another brood box empty full of foundation there, but you put the feeder on top still, the bees look up and they say, oh yeah, great feed. Okay, we'll go up and get our feed and bring it down. And they stay in their existing brood box for ages. And then they get to a point that they're going to get in the feed and they say, well, there's just like, we're full. We've got nowhere to go. We like to go up. We do with bees, but there's not actually any space up, but there's tons of space down. And what they do is they just slowly build downwards like that. And what's nice with a slow downwards build, if you're replacing comb, is that the queen and the brood nest follows that expansion downwards. So you'll start off the year with brood at the top like that, an empty box. And then they'll build this bottom box out with brood, and all of the brood will transition down to here, allowing you to put your queen excluder in and then remove that top box of old manky comb, and you can just go and get rid of all of that. And that's a really nice system and a nice easy way of doing it. I would have fallen into the trap, Steve, of doing that this year. I wouldn't do it. I'd do it next year, and it will save you a lot of hassle. Ellie Sean says, we are seeing wax moth. Any tips? So everyone's going to have wax moth in their beehive pretty much in the UK, or if not, like somewhere nearby in some equipment. Wax moth are managed by strong colonies of bees. Same as wasps. Like people say, how do you deal with wasps? It's like just get a big, strong colony of bees, really healthy, loads of bees, all is good. And it's exactly the same with wax moth. So wax moth will just take over any dead space within the beehive. If you've got a brood box and 4 supers and it is full to the brim with bees, like every single box you go into is full, then like you're not going to have any issues with wax moth at all. If you're on like double brood with 4 supers and you go into the bottom brood box and there's 8 frames but a couple empty, and then you go into the top brood box and there's like a few bees there but not that many, and then a couple of the supers are full, and the bees are somehow making all of that work. Like you could go into the top super or you could go into the second brood box. More likely the wax moth do like the brood frames much more than the wax super frames. You're going to find wax moth everywhere, and you're going to be seeing that kind of because of the lack of density of the space. So the easiest way to fix wax moth is reduce dead space. You don't want to be doing anything at this point of the year, like treatments wise or disposing of anything, because it's a bit reactive and there's no real need to do it now because compressing everything down fixes it. Wax moth is almost like a byproduct of not poor management, but just like a lack of understanding around that space. So the one where wax moth always becomes apparent is this. This is an example, a story. Let's say beginner gets their nuke in the season and it builds up and it's on a brood box and a couple of supers and then they swarm. And then the beekeeper doesn't recognize that. So you've got 2 supers and a brood box full of bees, and then the bees go. So they've lost half of the bees. And then let's say the virgin queen that emerges doesn't go out and get mated. So they've gone from a full brood box and 2 supers to like 6 frames in the brood box and no bees elsewhere. They've really shrunk back there. You're going to find on the outer edges of the brood box where the bees are not covering the frames, you're going to start to see wax moth. And then you're probably going to start to see wax moth moving in, maybe even on the brood frames as well. You can see this sometimes, but there's VSH behavior, which varroa sensitive hygiene, which is the bees responding to the mites that are being capped underneath and basically going in, uncapping them and cleaning them out. You see this as a kind of like spotty representation across the frame. But a lot of the time, you just see these straight lines of bald brood. It's brood that's inside that's not being capped over. And if you're seeing it in a straight line connected like that, what it means is there's a wax moth tunneling in underneath, and the bees are responding to that by not capping things over. They're saying we detect a problem. So you can see that even on healthy frames, even on frames that have got brood and bees on it, you can see wax moth starting to come in. But the best advice I can give you is just, it's the right time of the year to do this anyway. Remove the supers, take the honey off, compress them down to probably a single brood box in your case, and then treat them for varroa, feed them, and I don't think you'll have to worry about the wax moth at all. Oh, I forgot about my coffee here. Let's have a little sip. Right, Silas. So Simon G says, I did a queen rearing course a few months back. Your video on grafting was shown as an example. Oh, nice. I like that. How do you avoid pushing the grafting tool through the central rib of the comb, the older comb? I say, oh, nice. It's nice of them to steal my training material, isn't it? And then charge you for it when you could have just had it for free on the website or on YouTube. Cheeky that, isn't it? But hey ho, it's not the first time that someone tried copying everything that we do. No names. Right. How do you get it through the comb? So I think the best tip that I can give with grafting is buy every grafting tool that they sell, like literally every single one. At least one type of every single one. They're only like 2 or 3 quid, maybe a tenner each. Some of them work really well for you. Some of them do not work for you. So you see all the professionals, yeah, all the people who know what they're doing with queen rearing. They use like a stainless steel grafting tool, and they'll go in and it's all nice and yeah. I've got a Swedish grafting tool or whatever it is, and that's obviously the one that I bought. I thought, got to look the part here. Let's get the proper one. Let's get the one with the handle. And I can graft with those, but my percentage success rate is really, really poor. I smush them on the way down a bit, but getting them off this bit here. How do you avoid pushing the grafting tool through the central rib of the comb, older comb? I really struggle with that. And with all of the metal grafting tools, this was my problem, which was I could go down and get the grafting tool in. I could just about get the larva out. I'd pull the larva out and say, right, yeah, okay, that's good. That's not damaged. It's the right size. How'd you get it off? And there's a real technique to getting it off. It's like you don't get it properly on so that you can put it down. You're not looking to dislodge it. You're looking to kind of almost balance it out of the cell and then on to the grafting tool. but the problem that I have is just I was too heavy-handed with the metal. So on both sides, getting it out, I was puncturing the back rib or missing altogether, and then putting it down, I just couldn't get it off properly. So I gave up. I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not very good at it. Like the Chinese grafting tool, I've always liked, and I can always get a good success rate. So I'm just going to stick with that. And I love the Chinese grafting tool. It's so much easier. So the difference is this: like the normal grafting tool just has like a hook, a hook like that at the end, like a little bit that you kind of have to go in and get the larva up like that. Whereas the Chinese one, don't know quite know how to show it. It's like a retractable, so it kind of it could look a bit wrong, but it comes down and out like that, which is very, very useful for people like me who can't see very well, but also have not got a steady hand. So using the Chinese grafting tool, you don't have the issue here of pushing the grafting tool through the central rib of the comb, because it doesn't work like that. It's a really fine bamboo filament. And you can imagine, if I do it like that, if that's the cell, with the normal grafting tool, you're kind of just coming, I'll do it like this way. You're just kind of coming down and trying to get it and pick it up like that. Whereas with the Chinese grafting tool, you're coming down and the filament kind of just goes around underneath, and you get this kind of scoop up, and then it goes up, got the larva on the tool, and then you've got a plunger. So to get it off, you've got this little wooden plunger that pushes it back off again, which is brilliant. Like I love it so much, because all I have to do with grafting now, I just have to get the right frame of larva, like the right age of larva, and then get my grafting tool. And you don't look, you can do it without looking. And I find it easier to do it without looking because of the angle of the filament. So you just kind of look in, say, right, that one's good, and you put it in without looking, and you kind of take it out, and it just sticks to it. You don't need to see where it is, because you know roughly you're in the right place. As long as you're going down, it just sticks to it. And then it doesn't perforate the base. So this is where you're perforating here. You're just kind of going straight down there, because it's difficult to sense where it is, and it's difficult to do that scoop. And if you're a millimeter or two out, you just go straight through it and you damage the larva at the same time. I would give the Chinese grafting tool a go. People will mock you for it, no doubt, but it works, and it's easy, and it de-stresses it. And if you're doing a lot of queens, the last thing you want is to you need to be efficient. The last thing you want is to be cursing and thinking, oh, this is not easy. Right, we are nearly towards the end. I'll keep on going until the questions are there, up until 8. I've got one more from Mark. So if anyone else has a question, you can stick it in the chat. Mark says, just wanted to check. I'm on a single national brood box currently. Should I add another national on top now for winter? Same time as removing supers and adding Apivar. So that was the same question that I answered before. And I would say the general advice at this time of the year is maybe. I really would say it's maybe. I wouldn't say it's as straightforward as yes, do it. And if the bees don't need it, then don't do it. I would say you have to assess the colony. So someone sent me a picture the other day of all of the supers that they got off one colony, and one colony had 9 supers on. And I said, yeah, are they full of bees? Like, I had no doubt they were full of bees, but I said, like, are they still full of bees? And he said, yeah, no, it's like a blue overwintered queen in there. I was like, okay, right. What's your plans? And he said, definitely double brooding them. So taking the 9 supers off, double brooding the colony, and then getting them ready. And I was like, you might struggle with double brood there, but you'll get them in. But it'll be a tight fit. Bees will be really, really happy. If you've got a couple of supers there and the bees are only filling like 1.5 of those couple of supers, I would say at this time of the year, and the longer you leave the honey harvest now, the closer you get to that middle of August cutoff, the less likely I would be to advise double brood. Ultimately, though, the bees will tell you. The bees will tell you. They'll show you within the first week or two whether it's going to work or not. And the difficulty is going to be getting the bees to go up into the feeder. If you can get them up into the feeder, they're going to draw out most of those frames. And then so long as you pump in enough syrup, they'll draw everything out. But I would just say to everyone, see what the bees are doing. Make a judgment call, and don't be afraid to reverse that call. So don't blindly go and put double brood on because Lawrence says to do it. That's not good advice. You should look at it and say, okay, I've got 9 supers, I'm going to double brood, or I've got 1 super or 2 supers, I'm not going to double brood. Most colonies will be able to go down to double brood within the next couple of weeks, apart from the very, very biggest ones. The double brood gives you the buffer. It gives you the nerve. It eliminates a bit of nervousness. And this was, if you go back to some of the videos, like in the past few years, my advice to people would have been, remove all of your supers and just compress down to a single brood box. They'll beard, but they'll get in there eventually. And I went through that advice for a long, long time. And to be honest, that's kind of what I do 9 times out of 10 still. But the channel's changed a little bit. And the advice that I give now needs to be more universally digestible, I would say. But it's more designed for damage limitation. So whereas previously it would have been designed for efficiency of production in a bee farming environment, it's now more designed for Dave, who's a year one beekeeper who got a nuke this year and they swarmed once, but he got it back on track. And now he's got a really nice colony that he wants to get through until the next year. He wants to take the supers off, but he's worried about swarming. What should he do? And it's like, okay, well, like it double brood fixes your problem completely. And I think there's a lot of Daves out there. There's a lot of people out there thinking, like, what do I do next? I really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed my beekeeping. Everything's going well. I'm getting the honey, but I'm looking at them now and thinking, if I take all the honey off, like, what do I do? Do I double brood? Do I not double brood? If you do it early enough and the bees are there to do it, then I think it's one of the best configurations going into winter. I'm really, really big fan of it. And as I said, for the bees and the beekeeper, makes the beekeeper, touch my mic there, makes the beekeeper's life much, much easier. But I think it gives the bees what they want as well, which is you don't need to go in and do any more inspections because inspections are finished now. I'm not expecting any colonies. I'll go and do a final inspection just to check that everything's queen right, probably week after next. But then apart from that, you don't need to go in. You just need to keep on going and hefting and topping them up with feed if they need it. But the bees have just got free rein to go and do whatever they want. They've got free rein to go and collect all the nectar and build the overwintering configuration exactly how they desire it. Not go and build the winter configuration and then the beekeeper comes in and changes it all around and moves stuff around and takes honey and stuff. You're saying to them now, right, there you go. That's your winter home. I'll give you some feed and I'll give you the treatments. But you've probably got like 12 to 14 weeks before like you're really locked down for winter. Not that we lock them down, but you get what I mean. Like you're finished up for winter. That's a lot of time for the bees to do their thing still. Like Himalayan balsam's not even started flowering here yet. The ivy's going to come after that. There's a lot for the bees to go at. The heather, if it even comes out this year, looking quite nice actually in some areas of the UK from the pictures that I've been sent. Not looking that great in North Wales, but there's plenty more for the bees to go at. There's plenty more season left. And it's funny, this one, because I look back and I think, oh, we're finishing the season a lot earlier than we used to. It's what someone said. Finish it way earlier than you used to. And I say, well, it's not finishing the season earlier. It's just doing what's right for the bees at the right time, taking the honey off before robbing commences, taking the honey off to enable the varroa treatment to keep the healthy bees for next year. But the bees are still there. The bees are still going out foraging. The bees are still building their winter nest. I've just not got to go in and do any inspections. So I kind of sit there at the end of the year in the apiary, like, this is bliss. Just not got to do anything. We can just enjoy the bees again. The bees are doing their thing. The honey's in the bank. It's a nice time of year, and especially up at the forest, it's really nice because the autumn colours in the forest are spectacular. And there's so many things growing there now. And now finally that we've got a little bit of rain, I can stop going up there ferrying water up there to clean my plants, to water my plants. There we go. I'm not cleaning any plants. I'm not that strange. Right, I've missed loads of questions there. Right, we will fast track through the rest of them. Zach says, any tips for holding overwinter nukes back? They're currently on 6 frames of stores and brood. There is somehow a flow on now, and they're backfilling with nectar. Should I give space or try and take frames from stores or boost other colonies? So if you've got a 6 frame box, like a nuke that's full at the moment, it's difficult to know because there's full and there's full. So if I was going into a 6 frame box and it was on 5 frames of brood and 1 frame of stores and it was full of bees, I would say, need more space. Definitely hive them up, get them into full size beehives now. If I was going in there and I saw 5 frames of stores and 1 frame of brood, I would say, okay, that's not good. I would take out 4 frames of stores and give them foundation and give them a feed because they need space in terms of laying space. They don't need like more physical space. They might need more physical space as well, but the likelihood is not. Generally, if you find like lots of honey, not that much brood, there's not that many bees there. So I'd go ahead and do that. Another option, depending on what nuke configuration you're on, is to get some extension boxes. Extension boxes are great. Best time saver ever, because you just look at the colony. Say they're on 3 or 4 frames of brood, couple of frames of stores, like pretty average for a nuke at any time of year, really. But one that needs attention, you pop another box of 6 frames on top and go ahead and do it. The only thing that I would add to that, though, is we're getting to the point. It's amazing, yeah, what mismanagement of beehives teaches you. It really does. They can stay in those boxes for much longer than people think they can. And if you clip the queen's wings, and not everyone is a fan of clipping wings, but clipping wings will stop them swarming, or at least give you the chance to do something about it. But you can compress nukes down at this time of the year. So if there's a nuke there, so say you had 10 nukes there, yeah, that were on 3 or 4 frames of brood and a couple of frames of stores. Now, I would say you will lose 2 of them to swarming, which doesn't seem that bad, does it? You would think that you'd lose all of them to swarming because like there's loads of the season left. But the bees do somehow, like at the back end of the year, just seem to fit the space quite well. I wouldn't recommend doing that because two colonies swarming at this time of the year is probably 2 colonies still too much, and there'll be a way of managing it. But I wouldn't, yeah, don't be nervous about compressing them in. You should, like, all of the overwintered nukes at Richards, we're going down there this Friday, going down there to film and show you the overwintered nukes, and it'll be on 7th of August. So you'll have a snapshot, be really similar to what yours are like, and you'll see how big they are now. You see how big they are like 4 or 5 weeks ago. They're huge, and Richard just sits tight. And I'm always saying to him, "Are you sure? Like we could get some extension boxes here because that is a lot of bees and there's a lot of season left." He goes, "No, no, no, no." That's what he says, and I'm like, fair enough, Richard. He does know his stuff, so you don't challenge Richard. But I'm really excited about going down there. That would be good fun. I said to him, I'm going to cook him some pizzas. Mark says, what would be your preferred way of expansion in spring when you only have 1 hive, just made 2 nukes to overwinter? Oh, that's a good question. And again, you can spin it loads of different ways, that one. So I would say, your next bit, I was going to say, how many you want to get to? 10 hives. Okay. How quick do you want to get to 10 hives is the only other bit of information that you need there. So very, very easily, you could do this. You could say, I'm going to have 1 hive, single brood box in the spring. I'm going to double brood it and I'm going to feed. In fact, I'm going to put the additional box underneath and feed on the top. And then once that double brood is nearly full, definitely not to the point where it's swarming. So say it's a 22 frame box, let's say it's 18 frames full and you've got 16 or 14 frames of brood, let's say. You don't even need 14 frames of brood, 10 frames of brood, let's say, which is going to be pretty easy, like 1 brood box full of brood, 1 brood box full of stores. You can split that into 10 at that time of the year easily. Like, it's not difficult. That would be like 1st to middle of May. Take 1 frame of brood, 1 frame of stores, split them off, good shake of bees, take them off to a new site, wait 8 days, take down the emergency cells, add in a new queen, pop the tabs and wait 7 days, and they'll be good. And you can feed them up. And doing that at that time of the year, you would definitely need to hive up those nukes again at the end, or you need to split again. So it's not just like 1 hive to 10 nukes in a year. Like I started doing, I'm confident that I could do 1 to 80 in a year, like with unlimited queens and a longish season. So, but doing 1 to 20 is very, very doable. 1 to 20 is doable. But then I kind of cycle it back and say, well, you'll get no honey if you do that though, and it's quite a lot of work. So you could do it another way. You could double brood in exactly the same way and then just take off half of that and make up 5 splits. And then you've reset the colony back to a single brood box, put some supers on, manage that as a single colony, knowing that the 5 1 frame of brood and 1 frame of store splits that you've made are going to need splitting later on. So then you split them later on and you've got your 10 nukes, but you've still got 1 production colony. And you can do anything. You can do anything in the middle of that. You just need to sit down and say, right, am I happy to get no honey next year? If you say, oh, no, definitely want some honey, then I'd go with the latter option there. If you say, yeah, no, not fussed about honey, we've got loads of honey this year, it will get us through, I just want to go from 1 to 10 as quickly as possible, then I would go with the former, and that will get you there either way. Damir says, morning, Lawrence. I had all my wet supers in the freezer for a couple of days, and once I took them out and wrapped them in cling film, then stacked them up, I'm running a risk of mold. There's no air circulation. So yeah, you're running a risk of mold there. They'll come back really moldy. And especially if you've got any pollen in them. So it's the pollen that is the real moldy bit. Bees will clean up the majority of like little bits of kind of little gnarly bits of mold and stuff. But when you see the frames and they have like embedded mold all the way through them, like you have to clean them up and start again. So I wouldn't do the freezer bit if you're going to go ahead. So you put the wet supers in the freezer for a couple of days, I'm guessing just to kind of like kill any traces of wax moth that are in there, which is good. And then you've taken them out and wrapped them in cling film and stacked them up. So I wouldn't do that. I'd put them back in the super. The super's definitely the best place to put the frames. And I would go out, and if you can store them outside somewhere like that, it is the best way of doing it. I find storing them wet, it kind of eliminates the moldy risk. You get fermentation as opposed to mold, which is very, very similar, if not the same process. But I guess it's not the same process, is it? But it's more recoverable by the bees. So one, you open up the hives in the winter or the boxes and it's full of mold and you have to chuck it all away. One, you open it up and it's a bit whiffy, a bit of alcohol, and the bees, they can just sort all of that out. So it's, yeah, you wouldn't stack them up like that. I don't like any sort of cling film when it comes to frames. And you see, I have advised it in the past and I don't do it anymore, like stacking everything up and then wrapping it all in cling film to stop the penetration of wax moth. And I, like, for me in North Wales, it's great because we get so cold over winter. I don't have to do that. I just say, oh, okay, some wax moth are going to get in there, and then there'll be a little bit of damage, and then bang, cold, and everything's dead. And then it might get back in there again, but by that time the bees are going to be kind of going in there and sorting it out. So I don't like running cling film around any of it because it will go moldy. Cool. Steve says, quick one, made too many frames. Best way to keep frames with new foundation over winter. So stacked up in the box. Definitely, they need to be in the box. The main thing is if they've got foundation, they need to remain vertical. Any sort of angle, definitely not horizontal, but any sort of angle, and the wax will start to sag, and it's really difficult to get it out. So keep them all in the box, and keep them all stacked completely vertical. Rory Lyon says, so instead of brood and a half, go to double brood, then treat. So I would potentially go to single brood. That would be my advice there. Go to single brood, then treat. Depending on how big the colony is and depending on like the advice that I've given here, but I would say, yeah, just eliminate the half one way or another and then treat, and I think you'll be good. Hannah says, I removed 3 supers yesterday, put a second brood box on, placed in 2 frame stores, 1 brood, rest frames foundation, rapid feeder with 1-to-1 on top. So if in 2 to 3 weeks time, what percentage of bees will I want to see in both boxes to know if it's okay to leave on? Okay, let me read that one again. I'm having to work. Oh, okay. So you place that in the second brood box, right? And you've got the rapid feeder on top, right? So if they're drawing out the wax, that's your trigger. That's the one. So if you go into that box and you see the bees have worked all of the syrup, and you go into the first, like the new brood box that had foundation in, and you see the central frames directly underneath the feeder, and the bees are drawing it out, you see eggs in it. Great, you leave it on. If you're seeing even just a tiny little bit of wax being drawn out, like maybe half a frame of wax directly underneath the feeder, I would give them some more feed. I'd leave it on. If you're seeing nothing, hardly any bees, like just a few bees wandering around and no action whatsoever on the foundation, I would remove it and go to single brood. Oh, I've got an anonymous one here. It says, hi, Lawrence. Thanks massively for doing these. Currently on train to London studying for my basic bee assessment 1 week from today. 14-day beekeeper has been a huge help. Our new Black Mountain Honey Queen arrives today. Our second from you. This is for an overwintered nuke. Can't wait. Oh, amazing. Well, good luck on your, I don't know what that was, like a weird kind of high five way, but good luck on your basic bee assessment. I'm sure you'll do very, very well on it. And I'm glad that 14-day beekeeper has been a help. I'm just thinking of the train down to London. I quite like a nice train journey down to London. When the Wi-Fi is working, it is good, at least. Jim says, hi, Lawrence, I have a polyash feeder from my cedar hive, as per your recommendation. The cedar roof has vent holes. Will I need to block these for overwintering? I don't want to lose the insulative properties of a poly feeder. Loving the 14-day beekeeper and HiveQ platform. Thank you very much. So many people say that, and I appreciate it every time you do. It's nice to let people know kind of how you feel about things that you enjoy. So really easy, this one. When you put the polyash feeder on a brood box, you kind of imagine it from the bee's perspective. They're like, whoa, what's that? That's like really big, mega solid roof over our head. Now, it's like this. It's like being in the basement of a house and being all nice and warm. You're in a nice, warm, cozy basement. And then someone on the third floor, the second floor, opens a little bathroom window. You don't notice it, do you? You don't notice that it gets a tiny little bit colder, and it will be the same there. The bees are thinking, whoa, who put that massive, huge slab of insulation on our roof? Thanks very much. They're not like, come on, like you've missed the small window on the top. It's a really valid question though, Jim, and one that I would probably fuss over when I was a beginner, but now it doesn't really make a massive difference. However, definitely put the plug in, definitely feed it up and just stop anything getting into the feeder. That would be the reason that I'd be putting the plug in there. In terms of insulation, it's kind of almost beyond negligible because of how close the insulation is to the bees and the kind of permanent barrier that it creates. You might get a tiny little bit of airflow going through, a little bit of a tunnel effect, but it's nothing in comparison to what the bees are kind of capable of coping with. I remember back to like when I started beekeeping and some of the myths that they were throwing around. And one of the ones was you need ventilation in a beehive. Beehives don't work without ventilation. And you want to expel the stale air and draw new air up from the bottom, and you need to expel it at the top. So what they did is they cracked the crown board, got matchsticks, and then put like matchsticks round the edge of the crown board and put the crown board back on. So then you get this little kind of matchstick size gap all the way around. And it's so funny, yeah, because this was really like passed around as really good advice and stuff. And the pictures that people showed of this is they said, yeah, well, I put the matchsticks in, and then this is it. This is what the ventilation looks like. And I saw someone saying, what's all that gunk like there? And they say that's propolis. And the bees have just sealed it up like all the way around. So the guy's gone in and put the matchsticks in, saying, yeah, this is what the bees want. And the bees have looked at him and just said, it's not what I want. Just sealed up. Completely undone all of the beekeepers' hard work. And then the myth still got peddled for years and years and years. You still hear it now. Matchsticks to improve ventilation of the hive. Whereas now, I think the common understanding is much greater in terms of the importance of insulation, and the ventilation almost manages itself. So what we teach in 14-Day Beekeeper now is you want a nice solid roof at the top, solid insulative roof. The insulation on the roof needs to be better than the insulation on the walls, which means that the condensation only has one place to go, which is on these vertical walls. So the condensation tracks out downwards, and then you choke, and then you have a mesh floor at the bottom, and then the condensation can track out of the mesh floor. So it moves the moisture around in a slightly different way, and it moves the condensation around in a different way as well. It means that it's never condensing on top of the colony. It's always condensing on the sides, which is perfectly fine. If it condenses on the top, it just drips on them, which is not very nice for bees at all. And then it can track out. And you see a lot of setups like that now. I think more in the US, they have some scenarios where you do need some sort of top ventilation. And there's some instances where you need a top entrance as well, depending on like your snowfall. So there's always local information that might supersede that. But for us, definitely in the UK, solid like insulation. So solid top insulation, no ventilation at the top whatsoever, open mesh floor, and then side walls that are less insulative than the roof is a really good winter setup. Zach says, what's your experience with carniolan queens? I decided to try a few this year, and they seem to completely backfill the brood nest with stores, shut down really quickly. I don't think they're going to need any feed this winter. And I quite like carniolan queens. I'll have to say, they are slightly more difficult to manage than buckfast. It's different. You know, buckfast like a hybrid, whereas carniolan is like a specific line of bee. But the problem that I have with carniolans every time is that their build-up wasn't, it's not that it wasn't even quick enough yet. It wasn't at the right time. Their build-up wasn't at the right time for when I wanted it. And then when they started building up, it went too quickly, and then they'd swarm. And I really struggled with the swarming impulse of carniolan queens. So again, where my focus now has to be what bee is right for me as a kind of commercial bee farmer versus what bee is right for a beginner beekeeper. And this is why we don't sell the carniolan anymore, because it's quite a challenging one to keep inside the boxes, which I think is half the battle when it comes to what beekeepers want. They want to keep the bees in the boxes. They want to keep some honey. They want things to just go to plan. And I found the buckfast a little bit more predictable in that sense. Darren says, given the early end of the season, how late can you hive up a strong 6-frame nuke? Surprisingly late, but you don't need to. So it's coming down to that assessment of space and willingness to compress them down. Definitely now. If you've got a 6-frame nuke now, they'll be fine. The fallback, I would say, at this point in the year is that if in doubt, hive it up, because it's, you know, you've got 6 frames of bees in there to say, right, it's a 6-frame space to a 10-frame and an 11-frame. It's fine. And then the worst case scenario comes to it, you just remove some of those frames, build yourself, I'm giving you ideas now, Darren, build yourself an insulated dummy board or 2 insulated dummy boards. And then if they don't expand to fill that space, you just take out the dead space and put in the insulated dummy boards. So that should work well. I'm not getting any closer to the top here. I need to finish it. This is the way to do it. Right. Anonymous says, sorry, it was Paul. Forgot to hit the button. Train to London. Sorry, I get people's names wrong. I'm terrible. Dinesh says, thank you, Lawrence, for the time taken on your Saturdays to do these. I've learned a lot. And also thank you for Simon for helping people out with the new platform. Yes, thank you for everyone who is doing that. We've got Darren, we've got Simon, we've got John, we've got Andy. There's so many other people, Ferg, Jim. I'm going through some of the names here. There's a lot of names that come up again and again and again. John Danzy, top of the leaderboard. We definitely need a prize for him. Sorry if I missed your name out there. There's a lot of people. I'm recognizing the names, and I am very aware of the support that you're giving within the community. Like, it has not gone unnoticed. And when the season calms down a little bit, there is tons more going into 14-day beekeeper, most importantly into HiveQ as well. The one that people might not want to miss is the exclusive podcasts that are coming to HiveQ. Now, I'm not entirely sure where these are going to be posted yet, but what I do know is this: they will be exclusive to HiveQ for the full long version. They might appear elsewhere as well as a slightly compressed version, but if you want like access to some very, very cool podcasts, then I would head over to hiveq.com. Our subscription is £8.99 a month, but if you sign up to 14-day beekeeper, you get 12 months free for the entire year. So I am finished for the day. There we go. We've gone 5 minutes over the top. I hope you've enjoyed the first live stream on Circle on HiveQ. You can see it is a vibrant, fantastic community. And I just take the time again to say thank you to everyone that came and asked questions. I do appreciate it. And I love seeing what is building up here on HiveQ. I'll see you all soon.